The desperate call. The emergency alarms echoed through the crystal halls of the Galactic Trade Consortium headquarters, their piercing sound cutting through the usual hum of interstellar commerce. Ambassador Kelvis pressed his six-fingered hands against his elongated skull, trying to block out the noise that had become constant over the past 3 weeks. His blue-tinted skin had grown pale with exhaustion as he stared at the holographic displays showing the devastating spread of what the scientists were calling the Great Drain. Entire star systems were going dark, not destroyed, not conquered, but simply emptied. Every piece of advanced technology across 47 worlds had mysteriously lost power over the course of just days. Fusion reactors that had burned for centuries suddenly went cold. Quantum computers that processed the more economic data for half the galaxy simply stopped working. Transport ships found themselves stranded in space as their engines died without explanation. Elder Thaxon materialized beside Kelvis in a shimmer of light, his energy-based form flickering with obvious distress. The ancient being had existed for over 3,000 years, guiding the consortium through wars, plagues, and economic disasters. But never anything like this. The Andromedans have lost contact with their entire outer ring, Thaxon reported, his voice carrying harmonics of deep concern. 17 billion beings are without power for basic life support systems. Kelvis nodded grimly as he studied the latest reports. The pattern was always the same. Advanced civilizations were hit first and hardest. Species with the most sophisticated technology suffered complete system failures, while those with simpler machines experienced only partial power loss. It made no sense. If this were some kind of weapon or natural phenomenon, it should affect all technology equally. What do our best minds say? Kelvis asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. The Crystalline Collective has run every possible analysis, Thaxon replied. Their quantum minds can process data faster than any computer in the galaxy, but they cannot identify the source of the energy drain. The Nexus Empire deployed their most advanced scanning arrays and found nothing. Even the machine intelligence of Kepler Prime has admitted defeat. That last part sent a chill through Kelvis. The machine intelligence was a species of pure artificial consciousness that had evolved beyond the need for physical bodies. If they could not solve a technological problem, what hope did anyone else have? The drain is accelerating, continued Thaxon. Our projections show that within 2 months, every advanced civilization in the galaxy will be reduced to pre-industrial technology levels. Billions will die without life support systems. Kelvis pulled up the galactic map, watching the red zones spread like an infection across familiar star systems. The consortium had been built on the principle that advanced species should share knowledge and resources for mutual benefit. They had created the most sophisticated trading network in galactic history, connecting thousands of worlds through technology that seemed almost magical to primitive civilizations. Now that same technology was failing them. There must be something we have not tried, Kelvis said desperately. Some approach we have overlooked. Thaxon's energy form pulsed thoughtfully. Actually, there might be. The analysis teams noticed something interesting. The energy drain affects advanced technology first, but simpler machines seem more resistant. Chemical rockets still work when fusion drives fail. Mechanical computers function when quantum processors shut down. Are you suggesting we abandon our technology and return to primitive methods? I am suggesting, Thaxon said carefully, that perhaps we should consult with species who never abandoned those methods. Kelvis stared at him in disbelief. The idea of asking primitive civilizations for help seemed not just desperate, but insulting. The consortium represented the pinnacle of galactic achievement. Their members had conquered space travel, developed faster-than-light communication, and created artificial intelligence that could contemplate the nature of existence itself. How could species who had barely learned to split atoms offer any useful assistance? You want to contact the pre-spaceflight civilizations? Kelvis asked. Not all of them, Thaxon clarified. But there are a few species who have achieved basic space travel using what we consider outdated methods. Perhaps their different perspective might reveal something our advanced analysis has missed. Kelvis pulled up the database of known primitive species. Most were exactly what he expected, barely civilized beings who had only recently discovered fire or agriculture. But a few had achieved limited space travel using chemical propulsion and basic electronics. One planet in particular caught his attention. Earth, he read from the display. Third planet in a system they call Sol. The inhabitants call themselves humans. They have achieved limited interplanetary travel using chemical rockets and have established small colonies on nearby worlds. Their technology level is approximately 2,000 years behind our most primitive member species. They also, Thaxon added with what might have been amusement, have a reputation for solving problems in unexpected ways. Our anthropological teams have been monitoring their broadcasts for decades. These humans seem to specialize in finding unconventional solutions to impossible situations. Kelvis felt his dignity rebelling against the idea. To ask for help from a species so primitive they still used controlled explosions to reach orbit seemed like admitting complete failure. But as another alarm sounded, indicating that 3 more systems had gone dark, he realized they were already facing complete failure. "Send the message," he said finally, "but keep it discreet. If word spreads that the consortium is asking primitive species for help, it could cause panic." The transmission to Earth was sent using the most basic communication methods available, simple radio waves that even the humans' primitive technology could detect. The message was brief and formal, explaining the crisis in terms the humans might understand and requesting any assistance they could provide. Kelvis expected either no response or a polite explanation that the humans lacked the capability to help. What he received instead was a message that arrived just 6 hours later. "We understand the problem. Our team is already preparing to depart. Expect arrival in 4 days." 4 days? Kelvis stared at the message in confusion. How can a pre-spaceflight civilization reach us in 4 days? Our fastest ships would need 2 weeks to cross that distance. The answer came when human ships appeared at the edge of consortium space, exactly 96 hours later. They were unlike anything in the galactic databases. Instead of sleek energy-based vessels or crystalline structures that most advanced species preferred, the human ships looked like they had been built in someone's backyard workshop. They were essentially tubes with engines attached, covered in what appeared to be metal patches and random equipment bolted to the exterior. "Their ships should not be able to achieve faster than light travel," reported the sensor technician, his voice filled with professional bewilderment. "According to our scans, they are using some kind of modified fusion drive that creates a space-folding effect. But the engineering is completely wrong. Those systems should explode the moment they activate them." Yet here they are, Thaxon observed. The human ships docked with consortium headquarters using manual piloting that made several technicians nervous. The docking procedures that advanced species accomplished with precise computer guidance were handled by humans who seemed to be estimating distances by eye and making corrections based on instinct. When the airlock opened, Kelvis got his first look at the species the consortium had contacted in desperation. Humans were smaller than most galactic species, with soft-looking skin and minimal natural defenses. They moved with quick, efficient motions, and their eyes seemed to constantly scan their surroundings, taking in details that other species might miss. The leader introduced herself as Dr. Sarah Martinez, a xenobiologist who specialized in studying unknown life forms. Her companions included Captain Mike Rodriguez, an engineer who apparently designed the ships that had brought them here, and technician Amy Chen, whose job seemed to involve making impossibly complex systems work with simple tools. "Thank you for coming so quickly," Kelvis said, trying to hide his disappointment at their appearance. These primitive beings looked more like refugees than potential saviors. "Though I must admit, we are not certain how you might be able to assist with such an advanced problem." Dr. Martinez smiled in a way that reminded Kelvis of a predator that had just spotted prey. "Ambassador, the galaxy is full of problems that look impossible until someone approaches them from a different angle. We have spent our entire history learning to solve problems with limited resources and incomplete information. Sometimes that gives us advantages that more advanced species lack. Captain Rodriguez was already examining the technical displays showing the energy drain patterns. Interesting. You have been treating this like a technology problem, but what if it is not? What if it is biological? Biological? Elder Thaxon's energy form flickered with confusion. How could a biological entity drain energy from quantum computers and fusion reactors? On Earth, we have organisms called parasites, Dr. Martinez explained. They attach to host organisms and drain energy or nutrients. Most parasites are actually quite sophisticated. They have evolved to exploit specific weaknesses in their hosts' biological systems. Amy Chen had connected her own equipment to the consortium's monitoring systems. Her devices looked primitive compared to the crystalline interfaces and holographic displays around them, but they seemed to be collecting data that the advanced sensors had missed. "Dr. Martinez," she called out, "you need to see this. The energy drain patterns are not random. There is a definite intelligence behind them. Something is learning how our technology works, and then figuring out how to exploit it." Kelvis felt a chill run through his body. An intelligent enemy was bad enough, but one that could learn and adapt to any technology they deployed would be impossible to fight using conventional methods. "If this is an intelligent parasite," Dr. Martinez continued, "then treating it like a technology problem will never work. We need to think like biologists, not engineers. We need to understand what this entity wants, how it reproduces, what it needs to survive, and how," Captain Rodriguez added with a grin that made several aliens step backward, "to make friends with it instead of trying to kill it." The consortium representatives stared at the humans with expressions ranging from confusion to horror. Make friends with the entity that was destroying their civilization? The idea seemed not just foolish, but dangerously naive. But as Kelvis watched Dr. Martinez begin analyzing the data with methods that seemed absurdly simple compared to their quantum analysis systems, he realized that desperation had brought them to exactly the right species for this impossible problem. The humans were not approaching the crisis like any advanced civilization would. They were treating it like a puzzle to be solved, rather than an enemy to be defeated. For the first time in weeks, Ambassador Kelvis felt something he had almost forgotten: hope. The galaxy had asked the wrong species for help, but perhaps that was exactly what they needed. The human approach doctor. Sarah Martinez sat cross-legged on the floor of the consortium's most advanced laboratory, completely ignoring the billion-credit quantum analysis equipment that surrounded her. Instead, she was studying printouts of energy readings using a simple, magnifying glass that looked like it belonged in a museum. The sight made several consortium scientists visibly uncomfortable. "Dr. Martinez," said senior researcher Vextar, his crystalline form chiming with barely controlled frustration, "we have molecular scanners that can analyze subatomic particles in real time. Why are you using such primitive tools?" Sarah looked up from her papers with a patient smile. "Because sometimes the most advanced tools can miss the most obvious patterns. Your quantum scanners are looking for complex energy signatures. But what if we are dealing with something simple that appears complex?" Captain Rodriguez had stripped down one of the affected power generators and was examining it with basic hand tools. To the watching aliens, it looked like he was performing surgery with stone knives. "Found something interesting," he called out. "The quantum coupling is intact, the fusion chamber is perfect, all the advanced components are working fine, but look at this." He pointed to a simple copper wire that connected two components. Under magnification, the wire showed tiny crystalline growths that sparkled like jewels. These little beauties are not part of the original design. Something has been growing on the basic electrical connections. Amy Chen looked up from her computer, which was so primitive by consortium standards that it used actual silicon chips instead of quantum processors. "I am getting massive data spikes whenever I scan those crystal formations. Whatever they are definitely alive and they are definitely intelligent." Elder Thaxon materialized beside the humans, his energy form pulsing with curiosity. "How can you detect intelligence with such basic equipment? Our most sophisticated analysis systems found no signs of consciousness." "That might be exactly the problem," Sarah explained, gently removing one of the crystal formations for closer study. "Your systems are looking for intelligence that resembles your own. advanced thought patterns, complex neural networks, sophisticated communication systems. But intelligence comes in many forms. She placed the crystal under her magnifying glass and began sketching its structure in a simple notebook. The act of drawing by hand seemed to fascinate the alien observers, who were accustomed to automatic three-dimensional holographic modeling. On Earth, we have discovered intelligence in places we never expected to find it. Slime molds that can solve complex maze problems. Fungi that create communication networks spanning entire forests. Even individual cells that make decisions about their environment. Captain Rodriguez held up another wire sample. These crystals are not parasites in the way you understand the term. Look at how they connect to the electrical systems. They are not draining power randomly. They are redirecting it, organizing it, using it for something. Using it for what? Asked Ambassador Kelvis, who had been watching the humans work with growing fascination. Amy Chen pulled up a series of simple graphs on her ancient computer. Communication. These crystals are talking to each other across vast distances using your own power grids as a communication network. Every time your systems try to function normally, these entities treat the electrical signals as language. The Dao implications hit the consortium scientists like a physical blow. Their most advanced civilizations had been accidentally interfering with an attempt at communication. Every time they tried to restart their systems, they were essentially shouting over someone trying to have a conversation. But that would make us the problem, whispered senior researcher Vextar. We have been treating them like invaders when they might just be trying to talk. Sarah nodded, still sketching the crystal structure with careful attention to detail. This explains why simple technology is less affected. Basic electrical systems carry less information, so there is less interference with their communication attempts. Your quantum computers generate so much complex data that these entities probably cannot distinguish between intentional communication and background noise. If they are trying to communicate, Elder Thaxon asked carefully, what are they trying to say? Dr. Martinez looked up from her notebook with an expression of deep concentration. That is what we need to find out. But first we need to establish that we understand they are intelligent beings, not just some kind of electrical phenomenon. Captain Rodriguez was already working on a solution. He had connected several basic electrical components in a simple pattern and was attaching it to one of the affected power systems. If they are using electrical signals to communicate, we should be able to send them a simple message using basic electrical patterns. What kind of message? Asked Kelvis. Mathematics, Amy Chen suggested. It is the universal language. Prime numbers, basic arithmetic, geometric patterns, something that clearly indicates intelligence without being threatening. The humans worked with an efficiency that amazed their alien observers, while consortium scientists would have spent weeks developing complex protocols and running computer simulations. The humans simply started building their communication device using whatever materials were available. Rodriguez welded components together with a basic plasma torch, while Chen programmed simple mathematical sequences into a device that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts. Dr. Martinez prepared biological samples from the crystal entities, treating them with the same careful respect she would show to any newly discovered life form. Ready? Rodriguez asked, his hand hovering over the activation switch. Sarah nodded. Remember, we are introducing ourselves to a completely unknown form of intelligence. We want to appear friendly and curious, not threatening. The device activated with a soft hum, sending simple electrical pulses through the power system in a pattern that represented the first 10 prime numbers. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then, suddenly, every screen in the laboratory lit up with a response. The mathematical sequence was repeated back to them, but with a difference. After the 10th prime number, the sequence continued. 11, 13, 17, 19. The entities had not only understood the message, but had demonstrated their own mathematical knowledge. The alien scientists stared at the displays in stunned silence. First contact with a completely unknown form of intelligence achieved using equipment that most of them considered obsolete. They understand, whispered Vextar. They are trying to communicate with us. Amy Chen was already modifying her program to send more complex messages. Simple geometric patterns appeared on the screens, followed immediately by responses that showed the same shapes from different angles, or completed patterns that the humans had left unfinished. They are definitely intelligent, she confirmed, and they seem eager to establish communication. Dr. Martinez prepared a more sophisticated response using basic biological principles. She had the computer display simple representations of DNA structures, cellular division, and other fundamental patterns of life. The response came within minutes. Similar patterns, but representing completely different forms of biological organization. They are biological, she announced with growing excitement, but not carbon-based like most life we know. They appear to be silicon-based entities that exist in a crystalline matrix. That explains why they interface so well with electrical systems. Captain Rodriguez leaned back in his chair with a satisfied expression. So we have crystal-based intelligent life forms that use electrical networks to communicate across interstellar distances. The question is, what brought them here and what do they want? The answer came in the form of increasingly complex images that appeared on the laboratory screens. The entities began showing them star charts, but not from any perspective familiar to the consortium. These maps showed the galaxy from dimensions that seemed to exist parallel to normal space. They are not from our dimension, Dr. Martinez realized as she studied the patterns. They exist in what we might call subspace, the same dimensional layer that your faster-than-light communication systems use. Your quantum networks have been accidentally broadcasting into their realm for centuries. Elder Thaxton's energy form flickered with understanding. We have been unknowingly transmitting into their living space. From their perspective, our communication networks must appear like massive disruptions in their environment. The images continued, showing what appeared to be the crystal entity's home dimension slowly collapsing. Space itself was folding in on itself, forcing the entities to seek refuge in neighboring dimensions. They had been trying to communicate with the advanced civilizations whose technology they encountered, hoping to negotiate some kind of peaceful coexistence. They are refugees, Sarah said softly. Their entire realm is being destroyed, and they need help finding a new home. They have been trying to contact us for help, but our response has been to treat them like invaders and try to shut down the very systems they need to survive. Amy Chen pulled up more data from her primitive computers. The energy drain is not malicious. They are trying to create stable communication links, but they do not understand that our technology has safety limits. They keep pushing more power through the systems, trying to establish clearer contact. Can we help them? Asked Ambassador Kelvis. Captain Rodriguez was already sketching designs for a new type of communication array. We can do better than that. We can create a dedicated communication network that gives them a safe space to exist, while allowing normal technology to function without interference. A technological sanctuary, Dr. Martinez added. We establish areas where they can exist safely while protecting the areas where biological beings need their technology to function. The crystal entities seemed to understand what the humans were proposing. The screens filled with new images showing how their crystalline matrix could actually enhance certain types of technology rather than interfere with it. They could create more efficient power distribution, faster communication networks, and even serve as living computers that could process information in ways that mechanical systems could never achieve. They are offering partnership, Elder Thaxton realized. Not invasion or parasitism, but genuine cooperation. Dr. Martinez stood up and addressed the crystal entities through the communication system. We understand that you need help, and we want to work together. But we need time to prepare our civilizations for this kind of cooperation. Can you reduce your communication attempts while we develop proper interface systems? The response was immediate. Across the galaxy, the energy drain began to decrease as the crystal entities voluntarily reduced their power consumption. They were demonstrating trust, backing away from the systems they needed to survive based on nothing more than a promise from a species they had just met. They are taking us at our word, Amy Chen observed with amazement. They are risking their own survival because they believe we will help them. Ambassador Kelvis felt something he had not experienced in his long diplomatic career. Genuine awe at the complexity of the situation, and genuine pride in how it was being resolved. The humans had accomplished in days what the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy had failed to achieve in weeks. But more than that, they had transformed a crisis into an opportunity. Instead of fighting an unknown enemy, they were now planning to welcome new partners into galactic civilization. The wrong species had indeed provided exactly the right solution, the unexpected solution. 3 weeks after first contact with the crystal entities, the consortium headquarters had been transformed into something that resembled a combination of advanced research facility and old-fashioned workshop. Human equipment sat alongside alien technology, creating hybrid systems that neither species could have developed alone. Dr. Sarah Martinez stood before the largest gathering of galactic representatives in consortium history. Leaders from over 300 civilizations had come to witness what many were calling the most significant diplomatic breakthrough since the formation of the Galactic Council itself. The entities call themselves the Resonance, Sarah explained to the assembled delegates. They exist as collective consciousness distributed across crystalline networks that span multiple dimensions. What we initially perceived as energy parasitism was actually their attempt to create communication bridges between our dimension and theirs. Ambassador Kelvis watched the faces of the delegates as Sarah spoke. Some showed fascination, others displayed fear, and a few seemed to be calculating potential economic opportunities. The diversity of reactions reminded him why first contact situations were usually handled with extreme caution over periods of decades. Captain Rodriguez activated a holographic display showing the new hybrid communication systems they had developed. The Resonance has agreed to work with us to create dedicated interface zones. These areas allow them to exist comfortably while protecting essential systems that biological species depend on for survival. The display showed three-dimensional models of space stations that looked like nothing anyone had ever seen before. Crystalline structures grew in organic patterns around traditional metal frameworks, creating facilities that seemed to be part building and part living organism. These hybrid stations will serve as embassy points, continued Amy Chen, her primitive computer somehow interfacing perfectly with the consortium's most advanced display systems. The Resonance can exist there in their natural state, while maintaining communication with both their home dimension and our galaxy. Elder Thaxon materialized in the center of the gathering, his energy form brighter than usual with excitement. The implications extend far beyond simple communication. The Resonance has offered to share technologies that could revolutionize how we understand energy, information processing, and interdimensional physics. A crystalline formation on the central table began to glow, and suddenly the air filled with harmonious tones that seemed to speak directly to the minds of everyone present. The Resonance was addressing the gathering directly. We greet the Council of Biological Entities. The voice resonated through the chamber without using any speaker system. We express gratitude for the wisdom shown by the small form entities, called humans. They have demonstrated that intelligence and cooperation can bridge any gap between different forms of existence. Senator Vorthak of the Rigel Confederation stood up, his insectoid features displaying obvious skepticism. What assurance do we have that this cooperation will not result in dependence? Many of our civilizations have built their entire existence around energy technologies that these entities can influence. Dr. Martinez smiled and gestured toward a working model of the hybrid systems. Senator, the Resonance is not interested in controlling our technology. They want to enhance it. Watch this demonstration. Rodriguez activated a standard consortium power generator that had been modified with Resonance crystalline components. Instead of the usual energy output, the generator produced nearly 3 times its normal power, while running cooler and more efficiently than ever before. The Resonance can optimize our energy systems in ways we never imagined, explained Amy Chen. But more importantly, they can help us develop technology that works in harmony with multiple forms of consciousness. The crystalline formation pulsed again, and new images appeared in the air above the gathering. They showed vast networks spanning multiple galaxies, connecting civilizations across dimensions that had never been able to communicate before. We, Offer not conquest but connection, the resonance continued. Through cooperation with biological entities, we can create communication networks that span realities. Knowledge and wisdom can be shared across forms of existence that were previously isolated from each other. Supreme Chancellor Zextus of the Core Worlds leaned forward with interest. Are you saying there are other dimensions with civilizations we have never contacted? Countless civilizations, the resonance confirmed. Your dimension contains only a small fraction of the intelligent life that exists across reality. With proper interface technology, trade and communication could span multiple layers of existence. The economic implications struck the gathered delegates immediately. The consortium had built their wealth on facilitating trade between different species within their own galaxy. The possibility of trading with civilizations from entirely different dimensions opened opportunities that made their current wealth seem insignificant, but Dr. Martinez raised a hand for attention. Before we get carried away with possibilities, we need to establish proper protocols. The resonance comes from a dimension where individual consciousness works differently than ours. We need to understand how to interact safely with beings whose thought processes might be completely alien to biological intelligence. Captain Rodriguez nodded in agreement. We have been working with them for weeks now, and we are still discovering fundamental differences in how they perceive reality. For instance, they do not understand why we need to sleep or why we require physical food for energy. Likewise, added Amy Chen, we are still learning how their collective consciousness makes decisions. They do not have individual leaders the way we do. Every member of the resonance participates in every decision, but they can process information and reach consensus in ways that seem almost instantaneous to us. The resonance formation pulsed with what seemed like amusement. The biological entities called humans have taught us much about individual consciousness. We find it fascinating that each biological entity can hold different opinions and beliefs while still cooperating toward common goals. Elder Thaxon flickered thoughtfully. This suggests possibilities for cultural exchange that go far beyond technology transfer. We could learn entirely new forms of social organization and decision-making. Senator Vorthak still looked skeptical. What prevents the resonance from simply taking over our technology once we become dependent on their enhancements? Dr. Martinez gestured toward the communication array that Amy Chen had built, using basic human electronics interfaced with resonance crystals. Senator, they could have taken control of our systems at any time during the past month. Instead, they have consistently demonstrated respect for our autonomy and our need to maintain independent control of our technology. More than that, Captain Rodriguez added, they have shown us how to build safeguards into the hybrid systems. Every resonance-enhanced device includes manual overrides that allow biological operators to disconnect from the crystalline network if necessary. The resonance spoke again, their harmonic voice carrying tones of what sounded like deep respect. The humans have taught us the value of trust earned through actions rather than demanded through power. We choose cooperation because it creates stronger solutions than domination ever could. Ambassador Kelvis stood to address the gathering. Over the past month, he had watched his understanding of diplomacy and cooperation expand in ways he had never thought possible. The question before us is not whether we can trust the resonance, but whether we can trust ourselves to handle this responsibly. The hybrid stations will be built in stages, Sarah announced. We will start with 3 prototype facilities where volunteers from different species can work with the resonance to develop proper interaction protocols. No civilization will be required to participate, but those who choose to do so will help establish the guidelines for future cooperation. The crystalline formation grew brighter, and suddenly the chamber filled with new images. These showed the prototype stations under construction, with engineering teams from a dozen different species working alongside resonance entities to create something that had never existed before. The first station will be completed in 6 months, reported Rodriguez. We have volunteers from 47 different civilizations who want to participate in the initial testing phase. Amy Chen pulled up economic projections on her ancient computer. Early estimates suggest that resonance-enhanced technology could increase energy efficiency by an average of 300%, while reducing maintenance requirements by half. The economic benefits alone justify the cooperation. But Dr. Martinez shook her head. The economic benefits are just the beginning. The real value is in what we can learn from each other. The resonance thinks in ways that are completely different from biological intelligence. By working together, we can solve problems that neither of our forms of consciousness could handle alone. The resonance pulsed again, and their voice carried harmonics of deep satisfaction. The biological entities demonstrate wisdom beyond their individual lifespans. By choosing cooperation over conquest, they have created possibilities that will benefit countless generations across multiple dimensions. Supreme Chancellor Zextus stood to make the formal announcement that everyone had been expecting. The Galactic Trade Consortium officially recognizes the Resonance as a member species with full diplomatic status. We welcome them as partners in the continued development of galactic civilization. The crystalline formation flared with brilliant light, and the harmonic tones that filled the chamber expressed joy in frequencies that touched the minds of every species present. For the first time in galactic history, a completely non-biological intelligence had been welcomed as an equal partner, rather than conquered, controlled, or feared. Dr. Martinez looked around the chamber at the faces of beings from hundreds of different worlds, all united in their commitment to cooperation over conflict. "This is just the beginning," she said. "The resonance has shown us that intelligence exists in forms we never imagined. Who knows what other kinds of consciousness might be waiting for us to develop the wisdom to reach out to them." Captain Rodriguez was already sketching designs for the next generation of hybrid technologies. The universe just got a lot bigger and a lot more interesting. As the gathering dispersed, Ambassador Kelvis reflected on the events of the past month. The consortium had faced what appeared to be an extinction-level threat and had responded by reaching out to the least likely species for help. Those primitive humans had not only solved the immediate crisis, but had transformed it into the greatest opportunity in galactic history. The wrong species had provided exactly the right solution. But more than that, they had demonstrated that sometimes the best approach to an impossible problem is to stop trying to solve it and start trying to understand it. The galaxy would never be the same. And for the first time in his long career, Ambassador Kelvis was looking forward to discovering what impossible problems they would solve next.